All right, so as I had mentioned, my name is Tina Wahardo, registered dietitian, and today's class is Food Waste, No Way. And when we start any of our virtual classes, we want to just make sure that you are familiar with some of the resources that we have here at Bronson that can help you find a doctor or get assistance in other ways. So on the screen, you are seeing some resources that we have. The first one is our Find a Doctor or Specialist area of our bronsonhealth.com website. You can search on the search feature any specialist. Maybe you're looking for a gastroenterologist, maybe you're looking for an endocrinologist, maybe you're just looking for a primary care provider. You can narrow it down by zip code, you can narrow it down by specialty, of course, and then you can also narrow it down to just those that are accepting new patients as well. If you don't access the internet very often, you can always call our care advisors at the number listed on your screen, and they can walk you through and help you find a doctor that fits your needs. The second resource that you see on your screen is the Bronson Health Answers. Phone number and email address are listed there. Bronson Health Answers is a resource here at Bronson that can assist you if you are having any issues with your MyChart. And MyChart is that website or app that you could be using in order to access your, lab results, any imaging results that maybe you have had. You can see your upcoming medical appointments, the things that you might be due for show up on your MyChart, like due for a vaccination or another screening. And you can also message your providers through that MyChart app or the website itself. So if you ever have any issues with the MyChart, need assistance, Bronson Health Answers is there for you to help you in that way. If you have any billing issues, our Bronson Patient Accounting Department is available. Again, at the phone number is listed there, 8:30 through 5:30, Monday through Friday, if you need to set up any payment plans or have any billing issues at all. And then the last resource that we have here at Bronson is the Price Estimator Department or Estimator tool that you can access through Bronson MyChart. You don't need a MyChart account in order to get an estimate. But what it is, let's say your provider has, sent you for an x-ray and you kind of want to know what that out-of-pocket expense is going to look like for you, how much that's going to cost you out of pocket. Then this Price Estimator Department can help you look at the service that has been ordered, your coverage, and get you an estimate of how much that is going to cost you prior to going to get the x-ray done. You can have that information in your back pocket for you. So I hope some of that information is helpful. In today's food waste class, these are the things that we are going to talk about. Number one, we are going to learn some meal planning and meal prepping tips. I feel like planning and prepping kind of go a little bit hand in hand in my opinion, but I know some people differentiate between those two things. We're also going to discuss the importance of proper storage of our produce, fresh fruits and vegetables in order to decrease spoilage within our own refrigerator. And then we're going to identify some ways in which to use those commonly wasted foods that we have at home. Again, I love for a conversation style, so I will have moments for you guys to unmute and chat, and I always learn from you guys as well too, so please be willing to share if you are comfortable. So first, I am going to start us off with a poll question. And the poll question is, and you'll see it pop up on your screen here in a moment, is food waste costs the average American family how much per year? You are going to see that pop up on your screen. Food waste costs the average American family how much per year? Do you think it's $1,800 to $1,900, $500 to $600, $2,900 to $3,000, or $2,400 to $2,500 per year? All right, it's a tough question. 10 of the 12 of you guys have voted, and you guys got the answer correct. It is $1,800 to $1,900 per year the average American family spends on food that ultimately gets wasted. $1,800 to $1,900. I don't know about you, but I feel like you could have a pretty good vacation, right, for $1,800 to $1,900 when it comes to the cost of food waste. So pretty alarming number when it comes to our pocketbooks. So food waste, I said, is an important topic because not only is it the amount of money that we are throwing down the drain, right, but it does impact our environment too. And so the Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA, estimates that in the United States, in the year 2019, 96% of the food waste within our homes ended up either in landfills or down the drain, and then ultimately in our sewer systems. And you can see in small print there, I have the rest was composted, right? So we're only talking about 4% as the rest of food waste being composted. A lot of it is ending up in our landfills, and we know that in that decomposing process, right, that can impact our climate. So composting is one way in which we can use the food waste to our benefit. I'm not sure if anybody here does composting. I personally do not, but always like the idea of it and want to do it. So in this class, I did learn a few things along the way, and I'm sharing that resource with you guys here. So what is composting? Composting simply is the process of using up the food scraps that we have in our homes. Think about, potato skins, the ends of onions, the skins of carrots, maybe the insides of your bell peppers. Think about all of those food scraps that we might have. It is the process of using those food scraps, which they call green material, along with brown material like leaves. Green material can also be those grass clippings too. I was talking about how I'm looking forward to cutting my grass tonight, so that could be the start of my compost pile. And so the combination of the green and the brown material put together is left to naturally decompose into this brown, earthy material called compost. And it is a very nutrient dense, and it can be used to either add to our flower gardens or vegetable gardens that we might have at home, or we can use this compost in any pots that we might be using for, our annuals on our front porch. So composting is very nutrient rich material that we can add to our soil as a way in which to fertilize, essentially, get that nutrients from those food scraps that we otherwise would not be using. So I have listed a website here for you from the EPA on how to compost at home, and there is a QR code there as well. You can take not take a picture, but use your camera feature on your smartphone and put the camera right over that QR code, and it'll pop up the website for you. I'll have this at the end of the class as well. So we know that preventing food waste is the easiest and most powerful action that we can take in order to reduce our carbon footprint. It conserves natural resources, right? So the research shows that 30 to 40% of the food that is produced is going to waste, right? So think about all the water, the nutrition from the soil that was used to, grow that produce. We're using up those resources to only have that food wasted. So we are wasting essentially those natural resources of water and soil. And we know that preventing food waste can save us a whole lot of money as well. As we heard earlier, it could save us $1,800 to $1,900 per year for the average family. So what can we do? How can we prevent this food waste? At an individual, at a family level, what can we do? So here are the topics that we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about planning meals, whether that be, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever suits your schedule, whatever suits your ability to get to the grocery store. There's no set way, there's no best way to plan meals. It's whatever works for you. We're going to talk about some tips on shopping for food, how to store our food properly so we don't have spoilage in our refrigerator. And then we're just going to kind of brainstorm, let's problem solve. What foods are wasted in our homes most often, and what can we do with them instead of throwing them in our trash can? So another poll question here for you guys. This will be the last poll question. The question is, how many meals per week do you plan? Actually, I have it as a poll question, but if you want to do it in the chat, that's fine too. Give me just a second, and you'll see the poll question pop up. Again, you can do it in the chat if you want to. You can unmute if you want to. How many meals per week do you plan out? And remember, there's 21 meals per week, right? 7 days a week, 3 meals per day. How many of them are you actually planning out? All right, 91% of you have completed the poll. And what you guys are telling me is that 36% of you are planning out 1 to 3 meals per week. The second biggest category is 9 to 12 meals per week. So we're either not planning or we are planning. And there are a couple of you said none, and a couple of you said all of them. So we're a little bit all over, and that is good. For those that are planning out 9 to 12 meals per week, that's quite impressive for the group. And hopefully you will also have some additional meal planning, meal prepping tips and tricks to maybe share that I don't address in today's class. All right. So I think when, I talk to people about meal planning, it can be a little intimidating for people, right? They think about this very strict, like the picture that I see, right? Like Monday, it's got to be this, this, and this, and I cannot, even sway from that. It starts to get very strict when people start to think about meal planning, but it absolutely does not have to be like that, right? It does not have to be intimidating. It simply can just be a very basic process with the intention of, what you're going to be eating for the week, so you can shop appropriately. Plus, we talk about how meal planning can be very helpful in creating more healthful meals too, because then we tend to use less convenience options. So my first tip for meal planning is deciding how many meals are you actually going to need to make, right? Are you planning your meals for a week? Are you planning your meals for 2 weeks? How many meals are you actually going to need to make? Are you going to be having dinner out with friends and family twice this week? Okay, well, then that means I'm probably only going to need to make 5 meals, 5 dinner meals, and that can help you understand how much you're going to need to shop for. So number 1 is, how many meals are you actually going to need to make? Number 2 is to have a theme for each day of the week. It really makes that thought process a little bit easier, right? The number 1 hardest question in life, right, is what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Nobody has the answer, right? But if we have a theme for each day of the week, like today is Thursday, right? So I put on here my theme for the week for Thursday could be fish, right? And it's a broad theme. It's not salmon, it's not tuna, it's just fish. What do I have available maybe in my freezer that I could use? What is on sale at the local grocery store in the fish category, right? It takes a little bit of mental brain work out of planning out our meals for the week when we have some sort of a theme for each day. So just my suggestions there for each day of the week. Not that that is set in stone, whatever works for you, right? But number 3 here is using those theme days, right? Now we can build a bigger meal around it. Okay, Thursday, I said my theme is fish. I went and did my grocery shopping on Sunday. The local store had salmon on sale, so that's the fish I went for, right? And then I got my salmon as a base. Now what am I going to add to that, right? We think about that plate method, right? We need 1/4 of our plate protein, that's salmon, 1/4 of our plate, some sort of a whole grain. So I've got wild rice, and then half my plate is going to be asparagus. That didn't take a whole lot of planning with that theme day in mind. And again, it could be around a certain appliance that you like to use. So Sunday, I said, Sunday would be my slow cooker day, right? So I could make a slow cooker lasagna. I could do a slow cooker soup. Maybe it's your Instant Pot that you wanted to use on Sundays. Having some sort of theme day can help you put together a meal in a quicker way. All right, and then number 4 is rotating in your favorite meals, right? And only making 1 to 2 new meals per week. I think when we think about meal planning, and that's what makes it very intimidating, is that we feel like we have to create this new meal or try out this new recipe every day, that we have to revamp everything in our life because we are doing this meal planning now. And it does not have to be like that at all. So rotate in those favorite meals, those easier meals, right? You've made them before. You can whip them up very fast for those weeknight meals, and just make 1 to 2 new recipes. Maybe you conserve those for the days where you have a shorter work day, or on the weekend when you have more time to spend to that recipe. And then maybe it'll be easy enough that it can become a weeknight meal. But still depend upon some of those favorite easier meals when we're developing our meal plan. You can see again in my picture, right? We can still have a favorite meal, and maybe it isn't what we would call the healthiest meal, and maybe it is, who knows, right? But we can still say, like, look at our picture, right? We've got steak with some mushrooms, okay? We can still use steak and mushrooms as a base for a very well-balanced meal by putting some potatoes and half of our plate some sort of a green or a salad. Again, that didn't take a whole lot of time to whip up, and we still got a favorite meal like steak and mushrooms. So when we move on to then, like, we've got our plan, we've got our meal plan, we know how many days we need to cook our meals for, we've got it out on paper. Now comes the shopping part, right? What ingredients, did we use up in the past 1 to 2 weeks that we need to replenish? That's number 1, right? That obviously needs to get to our shopping list. And then looking at our meal plan, what new ingredients am I going to need? Again, we can't shop unless we know what we need. And when we're shopping based upon our needs, and we have an intention for what meals those ingredients are going to go to, we're going to end up having less food waste at the end of the week, right? So what new ingredients are needed? We had salmon and wild rice and asparagus. Okay, yep, I've got the salmon in my freezer. I don't need to purchase that this week. I just need to bring it out of the freezer, get it in the refrigerator, and thaw it out so it's ready for Thursday, right? But I do need wild rice. Oh, but you know what? I do have quinoa in my pantry, so maybe I'm going to use that instead, right? You can revise that kind of based upon what your needs. It's going to save you money by using what you have already at home in your freezer, in your pantry. And, wild rice and quinoa have, best buy dates on their boxes too. So why not use up that instead of getting closer to that best buy date? Again, it's going to save you some money. So, question for you guys then. What produce item gets wasted most often in your home? And maybe it's not even produce, but maybe what food item gets wasted most often in your home? I want to hear from you guys. Either put it in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, go ahead and unmute yourself and share. Bonnie says salad. That's what I was going to say, right? Spring mix. I buy the spring mix, love the spring mix, but don't always eat it up in time. So Pamela says bananas. Green. Alicia says celery. Nikki says berries or grapes. Grapes, yes. Berries, absolutely. Lettuce, carrots, celery, salads, bananas, fruit. So definitely the produce, right? The fresh fruits and vegetables. Anything else? It is the produce. I agree. That's my struggle too with the food waste. All right, fruit and some vegetables. Nikki says sometimes milk. I was wondering if somebody would throw milk out there. All right. So when we're talking about waste of fruits and vegetables, yes, we know we need to use them, right? That's important. But there's also ways in which we can store our produce at home that can help increase the life of the produce itself. So again, we're really working on the refrigerator right now, where we are storing our produce items. So usually on your refrigerator, right, you've got some humidity drawers, a high humidity, maybe a low humidity drawer. I was looking at mine. I don't really think about my drawers in this way very often, right? I get home from the grocery store and I'm just throwing it in my refrigerator without any sorts of organization, right? So I'm speaking to myself as I'm speaking to you guys here too. Again, I learned things while I was going through this information. And so I had to look at my drawers and say, do I have a high humidity drawer? Do I have a low humidity drawer? So I don't know how your guys' refrigerator is, but my refrigerator, I have one drawer in which I cannot control the humidity. So I would say that that is my high humidity drawer because airflow is completely cut off in that drawer. I have no way to change it. That means that the humidity is going to get trapped in that drawer. That is the drawer that needs to be used for the produce that is more prone to wilting. So your high humidity drawer is the drawer that you would want to store your greens in, right? The spinach, the lettuce, the spring mix that I shared about. Carrots, cucumbers, and any fresh herbs maybe we have purchased. And of course, as I'm thinking about fresh herbs now, I know you can also put them in a jar of water and help keep them fresh too, which isn't necessarily going to fit into a drawer, but another strategy. So your high humidity drawer is where you want to keep your produce that is more prone to wilting. So more sensitive produce items, lettuce, spinach, spring mix, carrots, cucumbers. I'd say celery would fall into that too. I know somebody shared about celery too. And then my other drawer, I only have one other drawer then in which I can change the humidity, right? So based upon my needs for the week, I could change that drawer to be another high humidity drawer. Or maybe the produce that I purchased this week, I need to change it to the low humidity. So the low humidity drawer allows for that extra air and moisture to escape through a vent in that drawer. So there's going to be less humidity, low humidity, right? So that is going to be good for the produce that is more prone to rotting. So things like mushrooms and peppers, melons, and then pitted fruits. So peaches, plums, and avocados. I'm sure you can come up with a few more too, but those are the produce items that should be stored in a low humidity drawer because that allows for more moisture. That's just how the produce is best stored. Then we have some produce that really doesn't want to be stored with other produce because of ethylene gases that are transmitted in the ripening process of this produce. These items, bananas, apples, pears, and avocados, should all be stored away from other produce items. I'm guilty of this, right? I got my fruit basket, right? And it's got the hanger and I put the bananas up on top and then I put my you know, my tangerines or my clementines down on the bottom, and my clementines spoil faster, right? Because the bananas are sitting right next to them, and then those ethylene gases help the ripening process of the other produce. And now I've got more food waste because I wasn't storing my bananas properly. However, that could also work to your advantage, right? You know, how do you get avocados to ripen faster? You put avocados in a paper bag with an apple, because the apple that's producing that ethylene is going to assist with the ripening process of the avocado if you need that avocado in a shorter period of time, but it can also work against us. So whatever your need is at that point. And then there is some produce items that want to be stored in cool, dry, dark, but well ventilated areas of our kitchen. So those are items like potatoes, whole heads of garlic, onions, eggplant, and winter squash do best in cool, dark, drier, but well ventilated areas of our kitchen. And then just some other things to consider. I saw berries in the chat often as something that goes bad frequently. And that is a challenge, right? In my experience, you really got to keep an eye on your container of berries, right? You get one with mold on it. You got to get it out of there, otherwise that's going to spread. But don't wash your berries and grapes and cherries until they are absolutely ready to use and eat. So, you know, you've got a handful of berries, blueberries, strawberries. Wash them as you are ready to eat them. That helps decrease the spoilage of those fruits. And then sometimes maybe you've seen in the grocery stores that they wrap the stems of the banana with plastic wrap. That is to help slow down the ripening process of the banana. And you can also hang them. Hanging them also helps decrease the ripening process of the banana too. So just some other fun tips. All right, another question for you guys. I shared some things, but what do you do at home to reduce some food waste? Go ahead and unmute yourself and share. Chat in the chat box if you want to. What are you guys doing at home to reduce food waste? And that's food waste for the landfill, but also reducing food waste and the money. Pamela says making soup. Soup is a great vessel for all the extra vegetables that are kind of coming to the end of their life that can be chopped up and thrown into a soup. Nikki says, including leftovers into the menu plan. Absolutely. Compost and also make smoothies with ripe fruit. Freeze extra vegetables and making soup. Freezing meals. Absolutely. And I'm going to share a resource with you guys on produce and how long you can store them in the freezer for. I got a couple of you guys doing compost. Awesome. Compost and also place out for wild animals, birds, and my son eats all the leftovers. Perfect. It is good to have somebody in the home that enjoys leftovers. I know people kind of, they love them or they hate them. I would love to hear more about your guys' experience with composting and any tips and tricks that you guys have experienced. If you, for those that are composting, would like to unmute, I would love to hear that too. Virginia says she eats leftovers from dinner for breakfast. Yep, breakfast does not have to be breakfast food at all. Good job. Cool. All right. I'd like to hear what you guys are doing too. So that comes to our problem solving part of our conversation today. You guys have already shared some information, and feel free to unmute or chat if you would add anything else to this. But bread is identified as one of the foods that tends to get wasted often. Maybe that is one of the things that you throw out for wild animals or birds. I'm not sure if you're supposed to do that. I kind of hear conflicting things on that. I know sometimes I have thrown out slices of bread for the birds, but You know, if you find that the bread in your house is getting moldy quick, especially during the summer times when maybe your home is warmer, there's more moisture in the kitchen, you know, putting half of it in the freezer before, you know, when you get it home from the grocery store, putting half in the freezer, thawing it as you need it can be one way. I know that that does decrease or change, I guess I should say, changes the texture of the bread. Maybe it wouldn't be as soft once you come out of the freezer, but it does save some money. Paulette says milk and cheese can also be frozen. Yes, that is true too. Yep. Stale bread, let's say you've got some stale bread. It's not moldy, but it's definitely stale. You can chop up, right? Make some croutons for your salads. We'll talk about lettuce a little bit. So you're killing two birds with one stone, to say. Making some breadcrumbs, right? Throwing that stale bread into your blender and making some breadcrumbs for maybe a tuna noodle casserole that you are going to make, some bread pudding, and then just making sure that you're storing that bread in a cool, dry place if you're not putting half of it in the freezer. Milk was one of the things that you guys talked about in the chat, is sometimes having some waste from milk. It can go bad pretty fast. And so I personally have just moved down to a half a gallon of milk because I just know that I cannot use up a gallon of milk. And so that was one way that I was able to reduce my milk waste, but also save some money in the long run. And then, you know, if you're not opposed, right, milk alternatives like soy milk or rice milk, those plant-based milks tend to have a longer shelf life than dairy milk. So that could be a switch to reduce the amount of milk waste that you have in your home. Onions can be either like diced up or sliced, whatever your preference is, and those can actually be frozen, and then they can be frozen for up to 10 to 12 months. I'm going to share with you guys a resource at the end of the class called Food Keeper. It is a website and an app that you can use. I have shared this resource in other classes, so you might already be aware of it. But the Food Keeper website or app, you can type in, you know, milk, you can type in onions, you can type in potatoes, and it will tell you how long you can freeze an item for. So onions can be frozen for up to 10 to 12 months. Potatoes can be used. Potatoes are a great option for some of the soups that you guys shared. Maybe you're making a casserole that you can throw into the freezer for another easy weeknight meal when you've got a busy day and your meal plan is just going to say, I'm taking a casserole out of my freezer. The potato could be incorporated into some of those freezer casseroles. You guys talked about how you make smoothies with your berries that are getting a little ripe. And of course, you can always freeze those for later use too, right? Frozen berries in a smoothie or on top of a yogurt are a great choice without having to have thrown those berries away. A lot of you guys talked about lettuce, myself included, spring mix, right? I have to make it an intention, right? I buy that big thing of spring mix. I got to have a side salad with every dinner in order to use up that big thing of spring mix. So I make an intention. I build it into my meal plan so I know that I'm going to use up that lettuce and not waste it. And then another fun tip is that lettuce, once it starts to become a little wilty, you can submerge that lettuce in cold water. I've not done it myself, but the article said 10 to 30 minutes that lettuce submerged in cold water can kind of bring that lettuce back to life for that crisp, crunchy lettuce that we're looking for. Here are the resources that I have provided to you. That foodsafety.gov is the Food Keeper website. So they do have an app that you can use as well. And again, you can just look up on the website, you know, onions, potatoes, and it lets you know how long you can keep them for, how long you can freeze them for. That EPA website, the second one, is more information on composting at home. And then I think food preservation is just a whole nother class in and of itself, right? But properly canning, properly freezing, the MSU extension, that is the website there for the MSU extension. They have a self-paced online class on food preservation. So you can just go through the class at your own pace and learn the best ways to preserve foods in a safe way so we don't get sick from that as well. And again, that is free to attend. Nikki says she's put lettuce and celery in cold water in order to save it, and it worked just fine. So that's perfect. Awesome. So that's the end of my conversation today. I want to hear from you guys a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind. What additional meal planning or meal prepping tips, any storage tips that you would want to share with our group and myself? Anybody willing?
One of the things that I do, and I have done, I should say, is my grandchildren would come for lunch when they were seniors in high school. And so what I would do is I would make up names for different things. Like I had a taco surprise, which had no taco stuff in it at all. But they thought it was tacos because of how I, put sauce on the top, and I would bake it and then they would eat it that way. Or the other thing I would do is make like a Mexican pizza with the tortilla shells, and I put anything from ribs in there and mushrooms and things like that that they didn't like, but they would eat it up because they didn't realize that's what they were eating.
It's a good point, right? Fun, creative names of the dishes. I was also thinking, when I was looking at like the theme days, right? Like stir fries and, stir fry vegetables doesn't always have to be the prepackaged frozen stir fry vegetables. It could be whatever you have in your crisper drawer that needs to be used up. Is exactly the same line that you're talking about, right, Virginia? Like you've got this on hand. This is the produce and this is what I'm going to put into the dish, right? I've got broccoli that needs to be used up. I can cut up some carrots and that's what I'm going to use as my stir fry vegetables.
Right. And like I said, when I would put them in like I would take the Bisquick and make a regular shell and stuff everything in there, and then I would bake it. They just loved that as well as the pizza, because they would think that, oh gosh, this is a different taste, and they would never know that I had thrown things in there they don't even like.
Yeah, very good. And think about all the extra nutrition they got from that.
Yeah.
Fun tip. I love that. Thank you. Anybody else willing to share? I've got Nikki saying, that she used to plan her meals for a month at a time. That's very impressive. So Pamela says storing lettuce in an airtight container with a paper towel. Yeah. Alicia says she tries to prep all the veggies for one day, so it's easy to grab while cooking or snacking. Absolutely. And that's where I was thinking, like, to me, meal planning and meal prepping kind of go hand in hand, right? Like, even though it's two different things, we've got the meal planning, we plan out those meals. Okay, we shop for the produce that we need. But if we're trying to be efficient with our time, especially on weeknights when maybe we're a little bit busier come dinner time, right? Taking some dedicated hour, maybe 2 hours on the weekend to cut up all that celery, to cut up all those carrots, cut up those peppers. So then they're a lot easier to just grab a handful and throw them into our dish, or a quick option for snacking. Absolutely, Alicia. Thanks for sharing that. Any other tips or tricks that you feel like we should know about from your guys' experiences? Paulette says, making sure I shop my pantry, fridge, and freezer prior to meal planning and shopping, and then prepping after shopping. Absolutely. I think we might be all guilty of, just buying more chicken or, whatever the case may be, more fish, right? Even though we've already got it in our freezer and I just spent more money on it. And now I'm increasing the risk of my chicken getting freezer burnt when it's sitting in there when I could have used it up. It saved a little money on the more chicken that I bought. So shopping from your pantry, fridge, and freezer prior to meal planning. And also kind of what Virginia was saying, being creative with what you have, right? Maybe you thought up, just like I was talking, salmon, wild rice, and asparagus, but instead of wild rice, I've got this other option. I've got brown rice. Why not? So being creative and being flexible with your meal planning too, to use up what you have. Very good. Thank you. Nikki says, I prep my chicken breast and ground turkey for the month. For the recipes I picked out to save time at dinner time. Yes. And I'm assuming prepping your chicken breast and ground turkey maybe for like the week and not for the month, but maybe for the month, and then freezing it and then just reheating it. Feel free to kind of clarify on that, Nikki. Freeze meats in half-pound packages. That's a really good point too, because meats are quite expensive right now. And so we tend to get better sales on larger quantities of meat at one time. And if we want to decrease any freezer burn or waste from that meat, it is definitely better to break those meats down into smaller packages and then freeze them. So great suggestion, Pamela. Thank you. Bonnie says she has found that the organic produce lasts longer. I buy 50-50 spinach spring mix organic, and I can keep up to 2 weeks versus the non-organic. Fun tip, Bonnie. I have not had that experience, so thank you for sharing. That might be useful for somebody. Nikki says, planning for a month allowed me to catch ingredients on sale. Very good. Yes. And shopping the sale is not something that we talked about today, but you can definitely shop the sales first and say, okay, the canned beans are on sale. So that's what I'm going to use in my meal plan this week. They've got the pork chops on sale. So instead of my fish on Thursday, I'm going to do pork instead. That can definitely save us a lot of money in the long run. Paulette says, buy in bulk and then split out to portion for recipes. And Paulette, if you want to kind of expand on that, I'm thinking meat, but you might be thinking something else too. So if so, please feel free to share. Buying in bulk and then splitting out to portion for recipes. You guys got some good tips. Does anybody want to share or unmute with their experience on composting for the group? I would love to hear more about that. And if not, that's okay too. All right, you guys have had some great tips. I appreciate so much your involvement in today's class and sharing some of the things that have worked for you guys. I know I learned from you, so I appreciate that. So what is one thing that you learned today that you plan on using in the next week, maybe for meal planning purposes? If you want to unmute and share, what is one thing you learned today that you will use in the next week? Either unmute or put it in the chat. Pamela says she is going to work on some meal planning. Use of the fridge drawers. Yeah, that was my takeaway from today's class too. I need to pay more attention to that. Yeah, fruit and vegetable storage. Work on storing methods, store bananas differently. Yeah, I need to wrap mine with plastic wrap too. I hang them, but I don't wrap them. So that could definitely help. And of course, just buying greener bananas. Putting my lettuce in cold water when it starts to wilt. Good. I would love to hear how that works out for you. I know somebody has shared that that was successful for them, so that's great. Very good. All right, some good goals for your guys' self this week. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. I thank you guys so much for attending with me today and learning about food waste and some tips on how to reduce food waste. I appreciate you guys. Pay attention to some upcoming classes in the month of May and June. I was sharing at the beginning of the class that May we have some fun ramen cooking classes. We've got a veggie burger cooking class. We've got a Mediterranean diet class. We've got some physical activity classes set for the month of May. And we also have some cancer prevention classes coming up too. May and June, actually, we are going to have the privilege of having a cancer care dietitian, Jillian, join us, and she is going to be sharing on how to eat for cancer risk reduction. And then in June, there's going to be a cooking class in regards to cancer too. So look out for those, register. We'd love to have you. And again, if you have any other suggestions for our classes, please feel free to let us know. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.